Hi there, and welcome to River Shaman Ramblings vlogcast, podcast, whatever. I had been doing a regular podcast and it was getting distributed through RSS.com, but you gotta be careful. And there's a cat on the bed behind me, about to knock over my stack of research books. I'm just gonna let it be. Which cat are you? Hey, which one are you? You're Banshee. Banshee is staying with me for a very brief time. She had some difficulty, shall we say. Anyway, I want to open with talking about how on this podcast I was originally talking about a Walt Walker journey I had went through and how monumental it was and very large and overwhelming. But some things happened. I at least in the podcast got to the part where I ended up going to Mengloth and she drowned me in red liquid, stabbed me in the heart, bound my wrists together, hung me from the rafters. They cut off my fairy wings, and I'll talk about that some other day. And gave me a gynecological exam, and then ceremoniously dressed me in robes and put on shoes on my feet. And I don't care for shoes. Never could find any information or any help with that. Nobody's really explained it. They've just kind of, nobody would talk to me. And after that, things got very dark in my life, really dangerously dark. And I was dealing with like way too much. I had a friend who would come over who had been also touched by the energies. It's good when that happens around you because you know you're not imagining it, but it's bad when that person is hitting buttons and is part of the problem that's causing you a lot of distress. So I stopped telling the story because I have to go back to the beginning and I need to talk about what happened to me step for step in a more teaching manner. I'm going to actually have to figure it out, and hopefully I won't put misinformation out there. But again, no one will talk to me that would know. And because we don't teach our children the stories anymore. I've been reading it online. Oh, well, the internet's kept a record. Yes, but it's a written record and that has removed it and made it kind of not real. And so we don't believe in things like the Rumpelstiltskin story anymore, which, yes, the Rumpelstiltskin story is how my nightmare ended. We don't believe in all these things anymore. We don't understand that these fairy tales were folklore and they were teaching stories because a lot of stories were. There were stories for entertainment, but a lot of stories were for teaching and keeping stuff in the memory. And I am fortunate that I used to do research and I have a low threshold for abuse. I used to have a higher threshold, but life taught me when it gave me way too many lemons. And so I got out of it, and I come out of it on the other side with a view on the spiritual pagan community that, well, that's how it is. It's how it's supposed to be. I've had, oh, oh, and because of my upbringing, I don't completely agree. So I'm looking at a Facebook post. This person is one of the people I had turned to. For those looking for the inspiration of mindfulness and empowerment in times of darkness, my new blog is up at Pagan Song and Joy. I did turn to them. I saw them log in. I saw it marked that they had read it, and they never said a word to me. Times of darkness, you need inspiration. Now, with that person and many people in that particular sub community that they're tied to and how I know them through, I was a victim of what I can only gather years later as female bullying because there was a woman who I rather looked up to actually who for some strange reason decided she didn't like me and did that thing. If you don't know how female bullying works, one of the ways it manifests is women are very vicious to each other and they'll talk about each other behind their backs. And what you'll get is normally is a ringleader who'll go around sabotaging whoever's reputation. Now, I have been female bullied many times in my life from where I haven't learned how to look and go look at somebody and go, ah, female bully. And this person, uh, I actually stepped out of a room at a convention and read her lips as everyone that she was talking to turned my way as I was walking that way, and she said, "Here she comes." And it was a very uncomfortable silence as I walked up, and I just pretended not to notice, but I knew. And it was after I had supposedly reconciled after a lot of the crap, too. But I knew it wasn't going to be allowed to last because that's not how some people work. And it makes me sad, too, because I really liked this person. I had defended her art form to people who had put it down. I had been very staunch, and she doesn't know it. And she's missing out now because I won't now. But the point is, that might be why I was not helped when I turned to this person. And when I turned to this person, it was a last ditch effort. I was at the bottom of the barrel. I was scraping, pulling up mud at the bottom of the barrel after all this. Uh, so I have a lot of thoughts on tribalism, on clickism, on people trying to make claims that because in a shaman group I was in, um, when I started mentioning some of what was going on in the shaman group, and all I did was express a lament that I didn't have my father to talk to anymore because the way I was raised, you had someone you would turn to them and talk to them. You don't have, they don't, I mean, where I come from, the medicine path of the weird, however you want to call it. I like to say the weird because my life got really weird. Like it was weird before, it's really weird now. Uh, um, but you would have an elder that you could approach and say, hey, suggestions. You don't have to obey the advice, but it's really a good idea not to walk without someone who's knowledgeable. And I was chewed out in the shaman form. Don't you know that you're supposed to read books now? And the books are great. I've looked at books in my life. I can read. I actually have a very high level, comprehension level of reading. I write. I write for fuck's sake. But still, when things went wrong, I needed someone who was standing on the outside who could say, "Hey, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right." And I didn't have that, and I really needed it. So these thoughts will now end up being put and become points of discussion as my podcast will now probably take a new direction now that I am on the other side. I will not make it a secret that through my journey, I was indeed invited over to Odin's Hall and was not told I was special, which, by the way, when you're told, oh, you're so special, you're the chosen one, when they tell you that, that's a bad thought. That's a bad sign. So I was not told that. I have had to learn how to tell beneficial from not so beneficial. I will not make it a secret that I ended up God spoused. And it was not God spoused because I asked, like so many people do. It was God spoused because the sucker tricked me by handling me a goblet. That's okay. I love him. He's cute. And I was mad at him at first. I hope to cover topics like energy vampires, which I experienced, and other forms of spiritual hijacking that a awakening shamanic soul, because I'm still in the shaman, an awakening shamanic soul, we no longer warn our children. And these things come after you, whether you're awakening shaman or not, to be honest. I've had night terrors. I want to talk about how everybody wants to science away the weird. when we shouldn't weird away the science and we shouldn't science away the weird, we need to remember that there's a balance that you must achieve. I hope to cover that. But for now, what I want to talk about is this thing where people talk about how you choose your life before you're born. I actually don't completely believe in some of the dogma. Maybe some people do because, whatever, but I don't believe in a lot of that dogma. Now, one thing I discovered while I was on my journey and I was getting pushed around and forced to grow, to fight and defend myself, because I was attacked by a boy with an axe, an Enochian who managed to get it in twice, and I will discuss how he did that, by the way, and teach you what to watch for. Um, I was going through against all this adversity, and it was forcing me to grow more and more. And then my friend had the nerve to get snarky about it when she was like, "And you're welcome that you're stronger." It's like, you are not in your right mind right now. But anyway, uh, so there has been a whole lot of soul contracts, this and that to other coming up, and they told me that my soul contract was this, and it's like, no, they told you. Were they telling the truth? And the thing I know I'm rambling, is because I got sidetracked. I'm so mad about some of this. Screw this here. Forget all that. Okay, so the topic I want to discuss today is this belief that some souls apparently choose things about their next life before they're born. What I saw was a YouTube video, and the title was something along the lines of "Why Your Soul Chooses Addiction Before Birth." Now, I have had past life regressionists and people like that. I go to them hoping to remember some gem, some kernel. I did get a gem while driving today. It was when I had first gotten here, and I was standing in a dusty area, and there was like a market square, and the dust and everything, it was new to me. And it was just neat. But I have had people go, "Why are you still here? Your karmic bank is like overflowing. You've like paid for everything. In fact, you didn't even do anything really." And yada, 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 yada. It's like, damned if I know. But I do know I didn't choose addiction before birth. And I do know from a recent experience that if there are people that choose it, I have to ask them what is wrong with them. And let me explain. Through my journey, spontaneously, I remembered the art of pitch pulling. And I say the word pitch, not miasma, pitch, because that is the old term. And I started pulling the darkness and sludge and spiritual crap off of local spirits, off of deities. I encountered a couple of chickens, and good results too. A kitten that was dying. She's not dead yet. It's a 99% fatality on what's going on here. Of course, I have Freya to thank for that. Freya, hell Freya. And I can't explain how it just came to me, because when Odin came to me, or rather when Odin called me after all the crap, and I had screamed at frig in the eye. I mean, this is a long story that I hope that I will be telling you, but it had been expressed to me when I said to him, "I'm not going to be no prophet. I don't know what's wrong with you people. I ain't nobody special. Sure, there's somebody better who could do what you're asking me to do, which I don't even understand what it is. I'm just a comic book artist, a writer, poet, and I like to play music." And he had said, and I'm going to quote, "That's what we need." And the task was to turn back time. Now, they speak in metaphor. I think a lot in metaphor. When he said that, I took it literally, though, and I had thought, and I was like, you can't really turn back time, but maybe it can be fixed, and was met with this wave of approval. Okay, fine. Yada, yada, yada. So I'm going through this mess, trying to figure out what the heck. And also being completely driven crazy. And highs and lows, emotional highs and lows. I mean, it's a long story. So I'm at a powwow, and it's night, and uh, don't ask me how or why, but I remembered that my father would pull energy, and there was like, there's purification stuff that you do at powwows and everything, and there was sludge and residue, and I cannot quite remember how, but somehow it had come up for me about uh, the purification art of pitch pulling, and so I gave it a try. But I don't really know anybody, and I wasn't sure, so I called up a local spirit who came, and you pull it, you actually pull it out, and did the thing, and realized, wait. And then I started looking around when I encountered something, and I started seeing that it was an epidemic of of this, well, miasma, which is not the proper term. I'm sorry, it's not. The reason why miasma is not the proper term is because residue in pitch, and there's two. There's residue, and then there's pitch, and then there's divine pitch. Um, it isn't always negative. You can also have good residue in pitch, and that's still bad because it affects your environment. What do I want a good environment? You want a balanced environment. And when you clean something up, that glitter on the floor is pretty, but your floor is still dirty. So I started working on pulling pitch, and Odin actually, yes, and this is in a world walk approach, so it was a vision, a kind of a remote view dance vision, because I dance, and so you can take that interpretation how you will. But in this vision, I did work with Odin a few times, and it just seemed to be like I had completely found what I was born for, was to drink the sins of the world, so to speak, because that's what sin is. It's an impurification. And I was really, really going with it. And then in part of my journey, I had actually world walked across the River of Death to meet with Hecate. And this was me approaching her because I had questions and that she never answered. Also, she thinks she's a soup. She thinks she's a soup kitchen, and I'm in my chair because I have a chair I like to chill in and kind of meditate in, relax in, and I kept seeing this face. Well, okay, this person passed away. When he died, there was a bolt of lightning that came down, and I remember feeling my heart squeeze, and it was like, I don't know if I got struck or who got struck. And then it was like, what the heck was that? And then in my head appears all this new information. Um, and I couldn't explain to you, like maybe that opened up something in my head already. Who knows? I haven't really explored it. I can't tell you. In my astral mind space, mind palace, with Sherlock Holmes probably tied up in the corner. And then I found out this person had passed. This person was a uh, master magician, for better term. And when I was 14, I used to go to his little mind palace and hang out. So I got to see people chosen for certain roles before it was ever announced, and a little dog too. Uh, so that it was interesting to me because the day before he passed, I had actually said to myself, I should world walk dance over to say hello to him and say how you doing and see how you're doing. And it didn't occur to me because I always get thoughts like that when someone's about to pass. So it didn't occur to me. It never does. So a few days after he had passed, I'm in my chair. And my entire life, when I'm in the liminal state like that, I would get approached by things. It's just now, I'm like, in the past, things would come and look as if they're like, is the bread baked yet? Now, when I get approached, it's because someone needs pitch pulling. One time somebody needed a parasite pulled. That was fun. But I can't explain how that works or anything. I'm still figuring this out. So just take it for granted that in the astral space, there's this thing. And sometimes I'll try it in real life because I would like to bring the art back to the world. Because whenever I started looking into it and looking into the art, that's when I discovered that although I had heard about the art in the 80s on the radio once, it's so buried now that it might even be dead. And that uh, I'm having to re-put everything back together. And when I find remnants of it, it's just a little bit. And there's so much to it. There's so much to it. Uh, so I'm seeing his face, this man's face. And it didn't matter. I would get up and move in the house, and there would be his face again. It was him standing here like this, like he's waiting or something, or trying to catch my attention. Dark, round, old fashioned, almost Victorian sunglasses, top hat, um, and all these entrapments all over his head, this weird, like, things, like that of copper all around, coming in and out. It looked kind of painful. Now, in one of my darkest hours, I was lying in the bed, and a entity I'm pretty sure was Ansi. Yes, I did have a lot of things around me, and I'm pretty sure it was Ansi because he had trickster energy and was trying to cheer me up. Told me a joke about women and their beards on their cheeks, and I wish I could remember the joke. He was so disappointed when I didn't laugh. But next thing I know, he's there, and he's like standing on the edge of the river of death. I call it the River of Leeches because I can't never remember how to pronounce the word. So he's standing on the edge of the River of Leeches, and he's like, "You gonna do this or not?" Because I'm mostly deaf, right? So, come on. And I realized that I had company and I needed to go dance. Fine, fine, fine. So I get up. Oh, I'm gonna go dance. Fine, heaven forbid I get my nap time getting approached by guys in sunglasses. And I used technomancy, and what I chose to dance for reasons was Ozzy's Over the Mountain, because Over the Mountain is about astral travel. And I'm dancing to it, and it didn't take me quite as long to get into the state where I could travel, probably because Ansi was helping me. And I get there and I walk across the water, and the gentleman, we're gonna call him the sunglasses gentleman. The sunglasses gentleman is standing there, and I walk up to him and I said, "Hello, do you remember me?" And he said, "Oh, did you know me?" I was like, "Yes, I used to go to your mind palace when I was a teenager." And he said, and he said, "I would like to be saved." This was a monumental thing because sometimes when I touch them or whatever, I can feel what they're feeling. And he was terrified. And I realized that I'm standing in front of a spirit that was a grand master of magic who was facing the next phase in his journey, and he was afraid of the future. So I chided him, and I said to him, now, you of all magicians should know there's nothing to be afraid of." And so I began to pull his pitch. Now, when I'm pulling pitch on an entity, if they're too corrupted, um, I get to watch their shape go back to their original shape. There was a siren that came to me because on Loki's day, Saturdays, I like to hold what I call the little people clinic, and that was before the things ended. I've got to rebuild because soul theft. That's okay. That's been worked on. I'm hoping I'm probably gonna dance again soon. It's just I'm gonna take some time to heal. But for example, a siren had come to me, and I didn't know who she was. She's just sitting there with these angry blue eyes. Rawr! "Okay, I'll just pull your pitch." And I watched her turn into a shark creature. And I was like, "That was a siren. How cool." So sometimes I don't know what the heck I'm dealing with. And I write it down, and then I go and I look it up and I research it. because I have a policy of going in cold, and that's so that you can confirm what you saw, so that things you already know will not color what you saw, because you need to keep your brain and mind as pure as possible for this sort of work. And so I'm pulling this guy, and I'm watching the hat and the glasses and everything disappear. And I got him mostly clear, and he turns to go, and I'm no, 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 come back here. I've got this phase to do. And then, come back here. I've still got this to do. There's this other procedure I'm going to do. And finally I said to him, this is your first time, isn't it? When I was done, finally, I got to say thank you for the gift, referring to the lightning bolt, but I don't even think he heard me. He disappeared so quick because he was finally done. A few days later, and I have it in my live journal, or my, actually, I believe it's on my blog at therivershaman.com. But anyway, a few days later, I don't remember who I was talking to or what, but I realized those weird entrappings on that gentleman's head, they were vices. Because you see, I see it and think a metaphor. When pulling the pitch, when you get to a certain point, when you pull out the base of what's ailing them, you will get a picture sometimes. And yeah, my divine partner, I did it once for someone. He was like, "Glory! My God, glory!" But anyway, you get a picture. And what I had pulled up for this gentleman was a glass bong. And I had said to him, "Oh, I see. You want to be free of that. But you're purifying the pitch. You're resetting it into balance. You're setting it loose." So I had to tell him, "Look, that's your choice to let go. But here's the trick. He could choose to stay an addictive personality. He could choose to be free. He was choosing to be free not before birth, but after he had learned his lessons and was about to go to the next phase with the vices all over his head. He needed the vices removed. That's what pitch pullers do. One of the things. And I'll be honest. From my point of view, standing there by the river of leeches next to him, or, it was more like this is what life had done to him. And I think, I have a book, yeah, Witches, Druids, and Sin Eaters. And sin eating is a concept, apparently, and I haven't got to that part in the book. This is by John G. Hughes with Sophie Gallagher. And I had started reading it because I've been trying really hard to piece back to art together. Uh, and I know, anyway, piece back the art, the ancient art that I have been around for before. Yeah. And so I haven't quite gotten to the sin eating part of the book yet. But I know that there is the concept, and I have a feeling that on the entire holistic pitch pulling field, that's what I was doing with sin eating. But these are things that life had done to him that he did not wish to carry with him. And he, had, I guess, the right connections to be able to reach out to me. Or maybe it was because we knew each other. Where he was standing by the River of Leeches just happened to be a spot I like to go to when I'm world walking to get some peace of mind. So somebody told him, "Wait here," and I'm going to have to slap them. But we don't make a habit of slapping deities. I'm going to slap them. So when it comes to choosing before birth, yes and no. Why does a soul choose to be addicted before birth? How about perhaps that soul is damaged from the life it had before and there was no one to pull its pitch? Perhaps that soul didn't want to deal with things and tried to ignore the problem and put their head in the sand and expected it to go away. Perhaps that soul thought hitting the reset button was going to fix it. I genuinely don't feel that someone's going to always choose that this is the trouble I'm going to have in my next life. I really don't think that you choose your troubles. Okay, I'm being handed a list of troubles. All right, I'm going to pick this life. I feel like a good dessert of anguish. No, I feel like it's more uh, your energy is a certain way because we all know that we attract energies and we attract things we put out. Your energy is a certain way and you're going to get harmed, just like I was harmed on my spiritual awakening. And uh, you can learn how to deal with them. Now, shade glasses Victorian guy knew exactly what to do. He wanted the vices removed, and I did my best. I'm not the best, but I did my best. And I have trouble buying into this crap that you're given a menu of troubles and you choose what you want to deal with as your next life lesson. Living life, period, is a lesson. And there are so many lessons that we don't even realize we've learned. And we always want to put everything to these higher cosmic ideologies. Oh, I'm going to learn how to be giving in a great way, become a great temple. I have been a priestess so many times. Let me tell you, no, sometimes that's just where you gravitate because it's what you like. It's kind of like I let the upset cough. It's kind of like I like to draw paintings and paint. No, I like to paint pictures. And so you're not going to paint pictures? Why? So, I mean, some of it is just hooey. Some of it is overcomplications. I stood by the River of Leeches. There was a gentleman who needed my help. I was pushed out of my chair by a very helpful deity spirit who might not have been Nazi, but he was somebody cool. And I went down to the water. I swept everything out from under the rug and gathered it up into a basket and brought it home and put it into a jade rock. And he was able to go to the next step. On the other hand, though, my friend's father, when he passed, he had cleared himself of those bad habits long before my friend was very old, and so he had led a Catholic life, and I had actually got to see when he moved on, and his step was, I don't know why I think I was shown it so that she could see, was it was two elephants and they had their trunks up in triumph pose with their foot up. Now at the time I didn't know what the fuck that meant, but that is where the light was beyond those two elephants. And so I watched him go, and I was told this is him going, and I have a feeling that he was done and he wasn't coming back like shade Victorian glasses guys was. Maybe the shade Victorian guy glasses isn't coming back. Um, so everyone's departure is different, everyone's journey is different, everyone's origin is different. I get a lot of we all come from this globly gloop thing. I don't, thank you. Uh, but that being said, I've not seen a single soul not want to leave the baggage behind so they don't carry it with them again. So I have trouble with that. I feel like this whole concept of soul contracts before you come. Maybe sometimes you go, well, I've got this thing, because like I do know that I was cajoled into coming here. I do know that, but some of it I think is made up to hold people down, and it has to do with hijacking and soul containment and holding back mankind's divine light. So that is what I had to say on today's topic. Is just this is my take on it, just from what I have seen over the years as someone who is a liminal creature. Now that I accept that, and now I'm going to go back to studying because Odo won't talk to me anymore because I didn't study the Futhark the way he wanted. So I'm going to go back to study and catch up because I miss my buddy. He promised to play Taffel with me. And if you must know, Taffel's new name is Fafnirberger. If you get mad, hey, it made Odin chuckle. Deal with it. Bye bye now.